for the benefit of Mr. Dry. Ethel's efforts to build the line continued smoothly. With each passing day, more lengths of rail snaked along the headland. The progress led to a shift in attitudes towards her. The workmen waved and hollered greetings just to hear her plucky whistle. The project's pace was no longer hindered by the children's, whose behavior had vastly improved. They still bumped and banged about, as they were those sorts of trucks, but they were quick to apologize. The fear of being magicked away was greater than the urge to cause mischief. Ethel was grateful for the lack of delays, and she worked tirelessly. "Mustn't let up," she huffed with feeling. "Mr. Hatt didn't build a do-nothing engine, after all." In truth, she'd done more than enough to make Topham proud. It was someone else's approval she was seeking. Mr. Dry's day had been exhausting. He'd spent the morning scolding the men for being more keen on waving at Ethel than working. Meanwhile, he'd lost his afternoon appeasing the partners of his company. "Gentlemen, gentlemen, please," he'd announced, with thinly veiled annoyance. "The line is near completion. With bigger facilities and the need for dredging removed, the capital will flow faster than the harbor channels themselves. Your patience will be rewarded." He'd been assuring himself as much as them. Now he stood silently outside his office. In the setting sun's glow, Tidmouth grew quiet. Mr. Dry had hoped to hear the sound of approaching hooves on gravel. "Blasted stagecoach," he muttered, looking around. "Is it that demanding to expect a punctual pickup?" "Peep, peep! Hello! Mr. Dry! Hello!" He fought hard against pinching the bridge of his nose. There it was again, that revoltingly bright whistle and that gratingly cheery greeting. Who had time for pleasantries when there was a railway to build? "Not still working, are you, sir?" "No, You must get some rest. It wouldn't do for you to be out of puff." "Now, Ethel," Topham chuckled, "it's not polite to interrupt someone." "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Hatt," she blushed. "And you, too, Mr. Dry. Forgive my rudeness. How can I make it up to you?" "Well, unless you can summon a stagecoach out of thin air, don't bother trying." "You could ride with me if you'd like, sir," Topham smiled invitingly. "Ooh, yes!" Ethel shrieked in delight. "We'll take you, well, as far as possible, sir. What with the line not yet finished and all." "Yes, don't remind me," Mr. Dry muttered. "Very well, Topham. We'll be off now, if you please." Ethel nearly burst with pride as Mr. Dry climbed onto her footplate. While the men chatted, she quietly talked herself into a state of calm. "Nice and steady, Ethel. No time for bumps and bounces now, not while Mr. Dry is on board. Oh, what a joy! I'm sure no other engine has ever had such an honor as— Oof!" With a bump, clatter, and groan, the train stopped. Ethel scowled at the childrens. "What's going on back there?" "Sorry, Ethel," they stammered. "It was an accident." "Those wagon brakes have been acting up all day," sighed Topham. "Pardon me, Mr. Dry. This will take but a moment." He excused himself and walked along the length of the train. Mr. Dry did not stay on the footplate. Hopping down, he walked a few paces ahead, heaving an enormous sigh as he stared at the horizon. "Are you upset, sir?" Mr. Dry turned to respond, but froze. He'd never seen Ethel look so meek. "When Mr. Hatt's upset, he makes that noise too, like he's letting off steam." He considered his words carefully. "There are many businessmen invested in my company. Overseeing the building of this line has taken up a considerable amount of my time. and the investors are growing impatient. They want vessels on the sea now, and just don't seem to understand patience. If they could only wait until the line is complete—"
"Is the sea going to disappear, sir?"
"Come again?" Mr. Dry asked, disarmed by the question.
"What I mean is, the sea's not going anywhere, is it?"
"Not in a hurry, it isn't."
"I don't understand, sir. If the sea's here to stay, what's there to worry about?"
Mr. Dry said nothing. Such an innocent question seemed to require a fair bit of pondering.
"I'm sorry if I haven't been working fast enough, sir. Mr. Hatt says we'll be done soon, but if these, busy men are giving you grief, I'll pick up my pace, I promise. The sea will be flooded with your boats in no time."
Staring back at the row of wagons, Mr. Dry found himself smiling. "It is I who must apologize. The progress made on this line is thanks in no small part to your hard work. I'm sorry if you've been made to feel unappreciated. You're a splendid engine, Kettle." The words had barely left his mouth before his face turned scarlet. "I mean, Ethel!" The little engine burst into laughter. It was like hearing her own name for the first time all over again. Mr. Dry, too, gave a hearty chuckle, a sound Ethel had never heard from him before. At that moment, Topham reappeared. "Forgive me, sir. Those wagon brakes didn't want to come unstuck." "Topham, my lad," Mr. Dry smiled, patting his shoulder. "Don't fret. You're doing me a great favor. If all's ready, let's be off. I don't wish to take up any more of your time. After a hard day's work, you and Ethel deserve a rest." Still chuckling, he hopped back onto the footplate. Topham gave Ethel a look that said, "Did you hear that too?" before hurrying to join his superior. Ethel's whistle echoed all around as they set off again. It was somehow cheerier than usual, which would have seemed impossible to those that knew her. She wasn't just pleased, she was determined.
"Yes, Mr. Dry," she smiled to herself, "we'll rest tonight, and tomorrow we'll push on up the line."